Alright, so this is Shane here. Let me turn down that mute on that television. And I am here for a music update. What I'm going to show you guys today is everything I picked up in Michigan when I was on my trip. Well, not everything. There's going to be a part two because I bought so much shit from the first haul that I'm going to have to make a second video. And that doesn't go for all the stuff I just picked up this weekend. So I'm going to do a lot of updates in a short amount of time. I'm hoping these, will be short, but if you watch the videos, you know that ain't true. So let's get into a line with the first of the first of the cassettes I got. And these first two I actually picked up at a like an antique store in Cadillac, Michigan. And when I lived in Cadillac, it sucked. It was a shithole and it was boring to live there. But it has got a record store there. It has this really cool like gift shop there. And I picked up two cassettes there. A little overpriced on the vinyl that they had there, but they had some cool stuff in there. And comic books, a little bit of everything. But here's the first cassette. It's Cinderella's Heartbreak Station. You can see the $3 right there. I paid for that. This is the follow-up to Long, was it Cold Winter? Not really familiar with this one by Cinderella. Haven't really listened to it, to be honest. By 1990, my interest in Cinderella started to evaporate. So I've heard good things about this. I've heard a few songs on here. What is on here that I've heard? The More Things Change in Heartbreak Station, which I actually kind of like that song. Kind of a tender ballad, I suppose. But yeah, really pretty cool to have. Cinderella, Heartbreak Station, pretty cool. Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. Hey Vince, where? God. Where, Neil, where? Where, Vince, where? Whatever this stupid fucking... And that song. On the Electro label, right? Yeah. 1987 release. I think I have this on cassette, but if I don't, it'll be part of my essential hair metal collection, which I'm trying to buy as much on cassette as possible. And this will fit in really, really, really nice with what I already have. So I'm hoping that this will be a good pickup for me. So Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. Probably, I have a really good metal collection on cassette. If that's not what I can't even remember what I just said. This, to me, maybe out of the first 5 albums they made, the weakest, but definitely some good songs on here. I love You're All I Need, the ballad on here. I love the sleaziness of Dancing on Glass. Wild Side is on here. Girls, 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 of course. 5 Years Dead is a good song. And maybe one of their more underappreciated tracks, Something for Nothing. That's a great song by them. Definitely kind of this is the precursor to what I think might be their best album, Dr. Feelgood. And of course, a lot of people would argue, and I argue and I go back and forth. But if you want to talk about like what they were trying to, what their sound was, their imagined sound from the beginning, it starts with Theater of Pain and then goes through to Dr. Feelgood. As far as having this glammy, sleazy elements, definitely, I mean, you can even hear those on Too Fast for Love and Shout to Devil, but I mean, the way that it's all coalesced in kind of put together on Dr. Feelgood it's really kind of hard to beat, in my opinion. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Girls, Girls, Girls. I got to get moving, so I got a lot to show you. These 3 I picked up at GT Records in Cadillac, Michigan. I'm saying Cadillac, Michigan. I got a lot, and these are all like local indie cassettes. Not all local bands, but like some local bands. And I'm gonna show these on my videos. I feel like this stuff, I never see people do this, and I wish they were showing more like local regional acts. How else are these bands and acts supposed to get exposed in a way? Maybe they're supposed to be on the underground, I don't know. But this one is a live cassette of 2 bands. One is Boy Mouth, and the other is Dude Man Sir. These are all recorded live on the Rotten Princess label, and you can see, and this is 28 of 50. So, thinking of this, Boy Mouth is punk, and they slide into more of the realm of electronic noise experimental stuff too. So they're really hard to kind of characterize what they are. Dude Man Sir to me is more like punk, sort of melodic punk into the. I heard them at least a few songs on YouTube, and I couldn't help but think of not just Husker Du, although Husker Du's one of the bands. Who is that band I'm thinking of? Dag Nasty. To me, they have kind of a Dag Nasty influence, a real melodic, almost even 90s influenced kind of sound too, like grungy a little bit, but really good. Do Man Sir, and like I said, Boy Mouth, they kind of, to me, they're so unpredictable, and you can see that's just on like a blank cassette. Yeah, and look, just written. That's how lo-fi the production on this is. I actually talked to the people at Rotten Princess Records, and I'm going to be sending them some of my noise work here, hopefully sometime this week. All right, this is the Dead Betties with Impossible Future. This one was $8. I feel like I overspent on this. This again on the Rotten Princess label. There was a whole section in the store for GT Records that had like regional stuff like this, indie stuff, and I'm a sucker for that. And for how lame Cadillac was when I was young, and it was incredibly lame that my youth was lived in such a boring area, but I made it work, whatever. But the fact that you can go into a record store in Cadillac, Michigan, and get fucking indie cassettes is really cool, and it shows how far the town has gotten. The Dead Betties, I think these guys are from New York. Where in New York, I forget. And this is kind of indie punk, indie rock, a little noisy, at times a little melodic. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Didn't really like do a lot for me either, but I'll listen to it in more depth before I make a final decision if I'm going to keep it or not. So, Dead Betties, Impossible Future. I thought it was the Dead Beatles, because there's a band called the Dead Beatles that actually cover Beatles songs in really interesting ways. And I was like, nah, it's not that. And the last but not least is a split between two bands on the Rotten Princess label. One is Dude Man Sir, and the other is Jump Ramp. Now, Dude Man Sir, I talked about having that little bit of that Dag Nasty kind of sound to him. Jump Ramp is kind of more skate friendly, kind of skate punk, so you know there's going to be some crossover tendencies, which there is. There's some live recordings of Jump Ramp, and I really like Jump Ramp a lot. Now, I thought Jump Ramp was from Florida, but I'm not sure where they're based out of, to be honest, but I'm really impressed with them. And Dude Man Sir just got that kind of, I don't know, there's something about Dude Man Sir. Their energy is super weird. I like this band quite a bit, but it's definitely I don't know. It's just like a band that to me that's kind of, I know they've been together for a while too, but it feels like at least the material I heard was sort of like really amateurish maybe, and that's not a beat on the band because I really like them. But Jump Ramp Sir kind of knows what they're doing, where they're going with their music. So this one was $10. This is getting kind of, to me, ridiculous when you have an indie cassette and you're paying $10 for that. Really ridiculous. And those are the cassettes I got from GT Records. I'll just show you the CDs since I have them right here. This is Down to the Bone by Cellar Funk. This is part of the Narada music series, and this is some tasty sort of hold on a second. I'm a little bent on the camera, but that's fine. I'm just going to leave it as is. This is jazz funk, light jazz, and surprisingly very funky. And I just like the cover of this. This came out in '92. You can see the Narada. So I'm thinking real light jazz with that Narada. Sorry about the glare there. I'm really surprised how funky this is. It's not nowhere near like Herbie Hancock or Miles Davis on the corner shit, but it is quite good. It's quite funky. It's more like kind of reminds me of that Back on the Block that Quincy Jones did in the '90s. A really pretty good record, '90s, 2000s. I forget what when that came out. Yeah, this is quite tasty jazz funk. Mostly probably light jazz, but there are a lot of funk and bass lines in this, surprisingly effective. And you're listening, they are surprisingly effective. And you're listening to this, and you're like, "What the fuck's going on?" Let me show you the picture too. These guys are the ones creating it. Cellar Funk is. So Cellar Funk are these three dudes, and it's funky as all get out. So, interesting. Yeah, yeah. So you can't ever judge a book by its cover. So, yeah. Hold on, I gotta pause this. I'm just shooting a video, Brian. Yeah, I'm just shooting a video. Unfortunately, I have to shoot out here sometimes because the sound in my room vibrates so much. I have to shoot in my living room, so which is, crap. But and then this I got for $4 too at GT Records, and that is Converge with Axe to Fall. Now, this is not a band I really like very much, but I had this from England. My brother got me a copy of this from England a few years ago, and at a punk store there, and I kept it for a whole month or two before selling it. And I kind of, with this band, I kind of just I lean back and forth to them. I guess they're considered metalcore, and I'm not down with that shit. But I don't hate it either. I just don't really like it, But this is zippy and lots of punchy mathy riffs in it, and the arrangements are blazingly fast, and this is as pretty experimental as you can get for Converge. So I'm definitely going to give this thing another chance. I listened to about half of it this weekend. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. So, Converge, Axe to Fall. All right. A few more CDs, and well, I got a few more. Let's just get into it. These were all I purchased at FYE store in Traverse City, Michigan, in the Grand Traverse Mall, and really enjoyed it. This first one is Spanish Fly, I think is the name of it, and it is Fly By Night. So Spanish Fly includes Steve Bernstein, Marcus Rojas, and Tranzo. And Bernstein, I believe, plays trumpet, Tranzo slide guitar, and Rojas is tuba. This is very much like avant-garde, sort of Naked City. Not quite as aggressive as Naked City was with John Zorn, but definitely kind of in that ballpark. Maybe Naked City's not. Look at some of John Zorn's stuff. It's avant-garde jazz is what it is, and it's quite good. And for the $2 I paid for it, I'm not complaining at all. Memento Bittersweet. Now this one was interesting. I got this for $1. I like how they package these as almost like they're new, but you can see the used in them. So Phi is definitely known for doing that, to try to make it look new. I don't know why they package shit like this. It's kind of annoying. We used to go to this record store in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where they repackaged used stuff to make it look like it was new, and you could tell that with the shrink, it was like the shrink was so crappy wrapped that it was impossible for it to be otherwise. But yeah, Memento Bittersweet. This is an absolute stunning piece of work. The composers on here were all had or all have had AIDS or HIV, and half of the composers on here died from HIV. So hence, bittersweet being the music is bittersweet, but a memento for these fallen composers. Some of this is absolutely gorgeous, spellbinding sort of avant-garde classical music. I mean, I thought what I heard on here was absolutely like some of it was spellbinding in a way. And I've never heard of any of these composers. I've never heard of this project. I've never heard of any of this. It's on the Catalyst label, but it's new agey sort of neoclassical music. It's good stuff. Lenny McDaniel, and this is Tired Angel. And now Tired Angels. Now this kind of surprised me because if you look at the cover, I was automatically thinking this is going to be some sort of jazz avant-garde thing, and it's more in line with like Sonny Landreth or I'm trying to think like Keb Mo or somebody like that doing like 90s 2000s folky blues. A little bit of acousticness, kind of more in the blues realm, I guess. Blues soulful blues. Kind of a mixture of all those. I do think of this as mostly a blues record, but there's a lot of soul music on this too, and folk music, and quite good. The song on here, what is the song on here I like a lot? Tired Angels, and there was another one on here I like. Can't Get Through. Tired Angels, gorgeous, soulful like song. I've never heard of Lenny McDaniel until now, and this one was $2, so it was a no-brainer for that one. The Dear and Departed, I kind of like this. This is off the Science label. Something quite peculiar, and this is a Australian or New Zealand band, I think Australian band, and they really are taking a lot of chops from kind of some dark wave bands, some bands. Obviously, a huge influence would be the Church. The Church were an influence on them. As a matter of fact, they do. I like the cover of Under the Milky Way on here that they do. Some of this is kind of lightweight indie popish for my taste that I don't like. But this thing has a way of like growing on you. Like I first did, and I was like listening to a few tracks. I'm like, oh, this is fucking not my thing. And then I was listening to it more and more. It just had a way of like saying yes. And I'm pretty sure I heard Dear and Departed on Darkwave Radio, which is a radio station. If you're hearing sounds in the background, it's raining outside. So there you go. So there you go. All right. Gershwin plays Gershwin. Like I said, these are all like $2. I'm just taking a chance on this. This Piano Rolls. I think this was released in '93 off of None Such Records. I like it when composers or players actually play their own stuff. And I don't know if he does. He does Sweet Lowendow, but Rhapsody in Blue is not on here. I'm pretty sure that's him, or is that somebody else? I thought Rhapsody in Blue was Gershwin. But yeah, he does Sweet and Low Down, and yeah, Rhapsody in Blue, Swanee, and yeah, a great American composer. It's piano jazz, not really. I don't know. I heard Billy Corgan talking about this, and he said it was really interesting, and I was like, okay, we're getting through these. For times for the albums, I'll have this under an hour. Sarah McLachlan with Surfacing. This was $1. I would have said in the 90s, I really did not like her. I didn't like any of that Lilith Fair shit, with an exception of Sinead O'Connor, who I always liked, and Natalie Merchant. There was such a big thing of like Paula Cole, and of course Alanis Morissette, who's more like, I guess, alternative, but God, I can't even think of the other ones. What's that girl from Buffalo? Shit, I can't even think of her name. But lots of female singer-songwriter stuff, and I didn't like any of it. Just not really my taste. I was listening to a lot of noisier stuff. So, but I worked with a counselor, and she was telling me to really give Sarah McLaughlin stuff a chance. McLaughlin, I can't even say her name. And I did, and I bought a CD of hers, and I really enjoyed it. And this Surfacing has some of her bigger hits on it, including Building a Mystery, Adia, and of course the heartbreaking and wonderful Angel. Um, yeah, this is a hit machine for her, Surfacing was. It was like a total fucking dollar right there, so I decided to get it. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, like I said, I got kind of a soft spot for her now. I actually bought a Christmas album of hers a few years ago. I got it at a thrift store, and I just took a total chance on it, and it was really good. I like showing these discount CDs just to show that there's something in here that's pretty interesting. These next three were $4 to $5 a piece. This was four. This is Frank Derone. Uh, uh, After the Ball is the name of the album. I think this came out in '62 with Billy May and his orchestra. Frank Derone is kind of in the same. I think they kind of lumped him in with Sinatra and Dean Martin and Andy Williams and stuff, but he stylistically has more of a kind of a pop swing thing going on, and more in kin to like a Bobby Darin, you know. And he's got a good voice. This is really up tempo, really like almost pompous in a way music. But Billy May, who did a lot of arrangements for Frank Sinatra, does the arrangements on here. And there's something kind of charming about this. I just don't see a lot of old fucking in stereo recordings of '60s albums very often, and that's what struck me peculiar or interesting about this. So Frank Derone, almost done. Roll of Cecil Taylor. This is awesome. This was $4. An absolute steal from the Jazz Heritage label. 1961 or '62 release as well. I think it was 61. Re-released in 1990. Cecil Taylor's a nutbag. He plays piano like it's the fucking drums. No one plays piano like him, and really, and this has some of that atonal kind of wacky shit on it, but not quite. It's a little bit more subdued. So this is maybe for some people a typical early '60s sounding jazz album, and to an extent it is, but you can hear some of that atonality and experimentalism on this. Nowhere near to where he was going in the '70s. And I've been looking for anything by him forever, and even to find this for $4, I was really happy to find it. He's just a fucking nutbag, in the best possible way. Jean-Michel Jarre. This is the last thing I picked up from FYE. This was $5. These are the concerts live in China. I guess a bunch of concerts he recorded in '81, released as a double album in '82. I'm really happy to have this too. I don't see a lot of Jean-Michel Jarre stuff. It's pretty interesting to me that it's there. So, you know, I mean, Eoxwin, what's that album? Eoxwin, you know what that album is. Like, I have had that album, that classic electronic album from the '70s, but really nothing else by him. And so this, I think, falls more into the new agey sort of electronic stuff. Don't quote me 100% on that, but I think it's in that realm. Anyways, if anybody knows for certain, let me know. This was $4.99. Almost done with the CDs. 2 left. This is really cool. I picked this up for $6, and I think it's just I've been on a Bob Dylan kick this year. Let me turn the light on. It's getting kind of dark in here. And if you hear that in the background, that's rain. I wasn't expecting it to get so dark, but it obviously did. So, back to what we were talking about. This, I've been on this artist, like I said, for this whole year, and I'm really happy to have this on vinyl, or on CD. My apologies. After just because he made his movie, his biopic came out last year, A Complete Unknown. Of course, I'm talking about Bob Dylan. This is The Tempest. So this kind of falls in that sweet spot before he was, you know, when he was doing all those standards albums. This is kind of like more like Love and Theft in Time Out of Mind era Bob Dylan. Kind of easygoing. There's a few rockers on here. What's that first song on here? Do Kent's Whistle. That song's fucking awesome. The video is hilarious. He does a song on here called Roll On John, about John Lennon, that's quite good. It's kind of bluesy, kind of, I don't know, it's got that Daniel Lanois kind of atmospheric thing that he was doing with Bob Dylan. It kind of feels like that on this album to an extent. Like I said, Time Out of Mind, Love and Theft, that's kind of, to me, like the influence here. Tempest. There's Bob right there, showing he can still do it, go after it, and do it after all these years. And Christ, he was probably in his 70s when he made this album. Pretty sure he was. And then this comes with it, this little notebook, and inside are just pictures of Bob and pick a card. Yeah, pretty cool. It kind of comes into this package. I was just more interested in this album than anything. I remember when it came out, but I was not listening to any of the Bob Dylan stuff that came out at that time. Yeah, that rain's coming down pretty hard out there. Pretty damn hard. So, you could definitely hear it, I'm sure. And last but not least, and I have probably more CDs and cassettes than anything. I don't have as many albums to show you, so this shouldn't take so long to go through the albums. But the Goth box. This is a Gothic box set, released off of Cleopatra Records. I was checking out, and lo and behold, this fucking thing was sitting in the like glass counter up front. I was kind of looking underneath that, and I asked him how much it was because I couldn't see the price, and he said $15. I said yes. So this is a 4 CD box set of Gothic rock artists, and what a steal. What a steal. I always am on the hunt for any Gothic compilations. You know, always on the hunt for that. You see, like, kind of like that. This is a 4 CD set. Four CDs of Gothic fun. This has got everyone from like Christian Death to I think The Mission is on here. Skeletal Family. A lot of the classic ones. Let me see. Bauhaus is on here even. The Wake. There's so many on here. I kept thinking of this Mortal Coil on here. I do not see it. The Damned, Mephisto Waltz, Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry. So a lot of different acts on here. This is an absolute fucking steal. An absolute fucking steal. So happy to have it. Happy to have this on CD. So that is the end of the CDs. I bought quite a few, but you can like up there you can get CDs up there fairly cheap, and CDs down here are starting to get to be more expensive. So that's that. What do I want to show first? Probably go back and I'll show you the records I picked up from the GT Records in Cadillac, Michigan. So there are 4 records in here. I'll show you real quick, and then I'll show you what I picked up in Traverse City. This first one was like in the free bin, and I ended up paying, I think, I said I'll pay $1 for it or something. He had a free bin of records, and I saw this in there, and I thought this was really, really interesting, so I picked it up. This is The Amazing Adventures of the Liverpool Scene. Yeah, it's coming down pretty hard right now. Produced by John Peel. Um, 1969, 68 release. This is the band who opened for Deep Purple, I think, in Led Zeppelin at one point in time. And they're sort of like a comedy troupe of sorts, but it's mixed with some like psych rock, folk rock. So it's like the Firesign Theater, but to me, a little bit better. There's a bat poem on here about Batman, and that's great. There is a few really weird novelty songs on here. Tram Car to Frankenstein, Bat Poem, this is the one I was telling you about. Percy Parslow's Hamster Farm is really weird, really of its time, kind of almost Fuggy in territory, kind of sounded like the Fugs a little bit. But yeah, off kilter, kind of comedy troupe weirdness from the late 60s. The name of the band is the Liverpool Scene, and the name is Amazing Adventures of, is the name of the album. Produced by John Peel. I'll give you $1 for it. It's worth $1. Two albums by the same artist. This is Earth Angel, as in Earth as in Earth on Earth as it is in heaven. Sorry, I believe this is their third album and a transitional period album from them, kind of shining up a little bit, polishing up their brand of hard rock. Still can get proggy, but lots of good rockers on this. I love Angel. I'm a fucking huge fan of this band. Yeah, it's got Can You Feel It on here. She's a Mover. On the Rocks. Lots of good songs on here. The last song on here, Just a Dream, is a little bit more of that proggy weirdness. They combined different styles. I've heard people say Deep Purple meets Uriah Heep meets Queen meets Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and that's probably true about this band. There's all those fucking influences in there, so it's pretty cool. And last but not, no, I'm not hardly done yet. Angel, hell of a band. This is their second album. This one was $7. The other one I showed you was $5. And that's kind of what these albums are kind of running now. Angel must have some sort of record renaissance where their prices are going up a little bit on the Casablanca label. I believe this band was signed by Gene Simmons, and definitely trying to be maybe Kiss's competition when they were signed on Casablanca as well. I don't know if that's true or not, but this has definitely a progressive feel to it, plus adding to that hard rock. Definitely some glam elements on this album. Like I said, they're kind of hard to pin down, but if you just want to call them a 70s hard rock band, there you go. There's a little bit of boogie in them, a little like get your feet dancing, feeling all right is great. The Fortune is kind of like more in that proggy area. Mirrors is a pretty cool song on here, and of course it's got the amazing Angel theme, which is really, really cool if you haven't heard it. But yeah, this is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And let me see, and I'm going to actually put these in the bag so I don't have to deal with this later. And then this one I picked up for $20, and this is kind of like my love for indie stuff. It's got to stop at like $10, but I picked this one up for 20. This is Boymouth with Now the Punks Have Gone Away. This is on the Rotten Princess label, and this one is more experimental electronic from Boymouth that I heard. I quite like this. There's a mix of real like electronic, almost dance music into real experimental. And maybe flavors of hip hop in this, but it really has that experimental thing all the way through. Drum machines, synthesizers, that kind of what you would expect. Maybe a noise box in there too. I don't know. These guys don't have the budget probably for a noise box. They might. I don't know. But this is pretty cool. This one was $20. I overspent on this, but it's worth a good cause. And now that I'm in relations with these guys, it's actually kind of nice on this black label. So this is probably the one of the few albums on Rotten Princess. There's some 7 inches, but lots of heavy-duty cassettes, CDs, downloads, digital downloads, which I hate. But if you go to the label, Rotten Princess Records, you can see kind of what's on there. Very limited roster of acts too. A lot of boy mouth stuff, some stuff by Dude Man Sir, not Dude Man Car. I might have said that earlier, Dude Man Car, Dude Man Sir, some other local acts too, and none of them I know who they are. And obviously Jump Ramp is on there, at least on that split. So yeah, if you want something interesting to listen to, try out this band Boy Mouth. I really kind of actually enjoy these guys. It's pretty good. And that is my Cadillac haul. GT Records, yeah, if you're in Cadillac, it's worth going there. I mean, I think some of the stuff is a little overpriced. I saw Atlanta Rhythm section stuff there for like $12. I'm like, imaginary lover for fucking $12. Is it Atlanta Rhythm section? Yeah. It's like, that's a little too much. These I picked up at Eugene's Record Co-op, which is an interesting record store in Traverse City that actually sells a little bit of DVDs, VHS, record players. The guy who owns the record store actually fixes and repairs record players, has bands play there. The place is like in a fucking basement. You have to go down these steps, and it was like, we went down there and found it, and it was like, owner will be back in 15 minutes, so we got an ice cream, and we went back down. It was still closed. We waited around for 5 minutes, and then he came and goes, oh, I'm sorry, I had to, and whatever, and I bought these records from there. 3 records. Dory Previn, On My Way to Where. Now, I think I've shown this before, and I don't know if I have shown this. I don't think so. This is an absolute stunning record from the 70s. JT's Record Room, that guy, that channel has shown this record, but he kind of glimpsed over it, which is fine. I mean, he was showing a lot of stuff. This is on the Media Arts label. So Dory Previn has a really interesting story, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about her today. And she's a, I think, Broadway theatrical singer songwriter who was married to Andre Previn. And Andre Previn did a lot of music scores, did some jazz, did some classical, did a little bit of everything. He's kind of like Henry Mancini. I guess that would be a good fit, or Michel Legrand, the French composer Michel Legrand. And he was married to Dory Previn. They were having some marriage problems. He started doting on Mia Farrow, I believe, and Andre did. And of course, Dory was not going to go without a fight, but she ended up getting into a bout of depression and was hospitalized. And I think she was hospitalized more than fucking once. I think she was hospitalized multiple times. And while she was in the hospital, her therapist or psychiatrist said, I think you should write. And I believe some of these songs were written maybe in the hospital. Don't quote me on that, but maybe. But definitely on some of the albums she made, there were songs written that were from the hospital. And I just think this is fucking fantastic. It's in that realm of, like, to me, it's like Judy Collins, but it's so fucking much darker. It's like Judy Collins with a little bit of like a Nico as far as like this darkness, that's in Nico. Of course, it doesn't have the avant-gardeness of Nico, but there is an avant-garde feel to this because some of the songs have kind of a Broadway theatrical feel to them, like fairy tale kind of music to them too, and it's just strange. I see these albums going for cheap all the time. She made another album called Mythical Kings and Iguanas that's amazing too. And Dory Previn is definitely one of those artists that once the hipsters figure out who she is, that you're going to start seeing this in the VC, or not on the VC, but, well, there are hipsters in the VC, on the Media Arts label. There are hipsters on the VC, is like I was saying. But yeah, the hipsters are going to get into this sooner or later. I'm pretty sure they will. There's a few really good songs on here. Scared to Be Alone. Where's that one song? Beware of Young Girls. Her fucking her scathing review of fucking Mia Farrow, Beware of Young Girls, is awesome on here. And then she's got a song on here about her struggles with mental illness, a song called Mr. Whispers, which is fucking awesome. Yeah, it, like I said, it'll come across a little bit like Judy Collins ish, but if you listen on a deeper level, it's definitely a lot more morbid and definitely enchanting in a way. So don't sleep on this artist, Dory Previn. She's quite good, especially these albums she made when she was fucked up. Definitely worth a spin. And like I said, those hipsters will get there sooner or later. This one I've been wanting just because I was curious, and this is Frank Marino's Juggernaut. This came out in 1982, without Mahogany Rush, just Frank Marino. And there's a lot of goodness in this album. This one was $12, but his albums are going $10 to $12 now, unless they're common records. This one is not as common record. There's keyboards on this album. This has more of kind of hard rock, AOR feel to it than that kind of bluesy hard rock from the 70s. Definitely sounds like it came out from the 80s. Very akin to something like early Triumph from the 80s or Gamma, that band Gamma. Something in that round. I think Ronnie Montrose was in Gamma. But fucking Gamma is awesome. Or is it Gamma? Is it Gamma? Yeah, I think it was Gamma. This is good stuff. Yeah. It definitely sounds like the 80s. This to me is kind of almost like in that Aldo Nova a little bit category. Not quite as hung on the keys as Aldo is, especially on the first album, but a nice blend of keyboards and hard rock. That first Aldo Nova album is so hard to beat because there's that nice mixture of both. If anything on that album, I just wish there was less fucking ballads and more rockers. But so this was the most expensive thing I got, and this one I kind of wish I wouldn't have gotten because it was $28. But I was hell bent because it took forever to find this store, and I was already tired. I was like, I'm not going to lose. Henry Cow. This is the Leg's End. The Leg End? Leg End. 1973 release, I believe. And I think this was made in 73, released in 75 maybe. Or released in 73, one of maybe their earlier albums. And what a stunning album this is. A stunning album. This, like, if you've not heard of Henry Cow, they're a British band, and the most noted musician in it is Fred Frith. I'm not even going to say his name right. Fred Frith. And Fred Frith is went on to play with Bill Laswell, amongst other things, and he's quite the musician, and played. I want to say he played with Bill Laswell, amongst other people. Maybe John Zorn too. I think he played with John Zorn. Just nothing too unsurprising with him, with Fred Frith, and kind of the career trajectory he was going down. To me, there's the crazy side of experimental prog, which is progressive rock, which is more like bands like Comus, which they're batshit, and Gong, that has a little psych heaviness to them. These guys are on the opposite spectrum, where it is really fucking experimental and really kind of this collaborative musical collage, but it's not done with a sort of aggressiveness to it. And that's the best way I can kind of describe them. It's quite good. It's quite enchanting. You'll hear bells and flutes and all kinds of, and it's a little folky too, but it's definitely experimental music as well. And Henry Cow had it going on in the 70s. They were one of the more interesting progressive rock bands. And the 70s does not get their, I mean, a lot of those bands are like, you know, like Emerson, like Palmer, and I love them, but like a lot of them, like, you know, don't get, like Jade Warrior is another great band from the 70s. They were doing more like kind of experimental stuff. Don't get their love. Like Comus is great. Gong is great. Like some of those bands, you know, didn't quite have the same notoriety as Yes and Genesis and King Crimson, but they're quite good. And this is these are records I picked up from Eugene's Record Co-op in Traverse City, Michigan. Very small store. Probably had, I don't know, he probably had maybe 1,000 records in there, maybe. We're moving along. I'm going to probably be at an hour by the time I'm done with this, unfortunately, but it is what it is. These are records I picked up from RPM Records in Traverse City, Michigan, and these are, I got quite a few in there, and quite a few in here. I'm going to try to go through these real quick because I've been shooting for about 45 minutes now. RPM is the biggest record store in Traverse City, the biggest probably in northern Michigan. It's quite good, a little pricey, but you have to kind of, it's not like one of those places where you really have to kind of look for the values. And I feel like I got a few value records today. This one's interesting. This is Alice in Wonderland, and this is based on the TV miniseries that came out in 1985 with a bunch of different voices, including Scott Baio as the guinea pig, Ernest Borgnine is the lion, Sid Caesar is the griffin. Lots of different people on this album. It's kind of one of those kids album. It's on the Kid Stuff label. I don't remember the adventures of Alice in Wonderland in the 80s, but then again, whatever, you know. It's cool. Yeah, that fucking rain is going on out there. Renaissance Live. This is a double live album that came out in '76. And Renaissance is a tale of two different stories of two different bands. Of course, it began with Janet and Keith Ralph. Of course, Keith Ralph was from the Yardbirds. They left, I think, after the second album, and they became a lot more as it went on. They started out way more like folk rockish, kind of in the Fairport Convention vein, and as it went on, they became more and more progressive, and getting into almost classical music inspirations, and definitely became more, yeah, like adding neoclassicism or classical music to it. New agey folky stuff to their progressive rock, with Annie Haslam too on vocals. Just wonderful. This is a double live album, and this was $1, so, and I've seen this go for $7-8, so that was a no-brainer. Irish band that's not U2. This is Hot House Flowers with People, and these guys are really interesting. I think I just picked this up mostly for the novelty of it, because I don't really see their fucking shit out there in the wild very often, not on vinyl, and it was $5, so I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna get it. It has a little bit of a Pogues thing going on, where there's this real communal folk sound, but they can actually rock out a little bit too, and it's kind of mellow in a sense, but it's also kind of got a college rock vibe to it as well. And quite good. Like they can rock out. What's the song that's a rocker on here? Is it Feet on the Ground? Yeah, it's Feet on the Ground. That song is fucking badass. And then there's a song like Forgiven that has a mellowness to it. It does kind of remind me a little bit of the Pogues, because they use a lot of folk music and strings and stuff, but they're not like the Pogues, really. And they're obviously considered, you know, probably compared to U2, and they're not really like them either. They're just their own thing. This was their debut album from '88 on the London label. I just thought it was really interesting to find a Hot House Flowers record. I don't think I've seen anything by them on fucking vinyl. So this to me was a real interesting find. Godly and Cream, make me want to cry. 1985, Cry, the extended version, extended remix, the single version, and the extended version. Love this song. To me, and this is just my opinion and only, I'm talking top 40 music, okay? In 1985, which when I was a kid, hated that year for top 40, hated it. Now I've gone back and thought there was a lot of really good songs in 1985 as far as songs that were played on the radio and that were more mainstream pop songs. But to me, for my money, this was the best pop single in 1985. This song is a stirring, beautiful piece of pop music. These guys can be kind of art rock, avant-garde, Godley and Cream, and of course these guys are from 10cc. But Cry was, of course, a pretty innovative video, which I think just a year later, taking kind of the same idea but using more stop motion stuff was Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. But this was a very innovative video on MTV, which helped its sales, I'm sure. But yeah, great pop song, a little arty, but in the best kind of way. So Godley and Cream with Cry. It's a 12-inch single. Australian guy, Mr. Billy Thorpe, Children of the Sun. I was talking to the owner about this album, and he was in awe that I put this up. Billy Thorpe was in a long-standing Australian band, and I can't remember their name. That's the problem when I do the research. I do it days before, and I forget. But he was in bands throughout the 60s, fairly successful in Australia. And then in the late 70s, he made this diamond gem of an album. And I've been kind of obsessed with this whole album as of lately. And as I brought up that Aldo Nova reference earlier, it's really like an Aldo Nova inspired kind of thing here. And he was doing this in the late 70s. Science fiction based hard rock. Of course, Aldo Nova kind of not on the first album, but definitely on the second album. Subject Aldo Nova was incorporating science fiction themes and hard rock. So lo and behold, this kind of precursed that. And of course, Children of the Sun's played on the radio, and it's a fucking awesome song. Science fiction themed, kind of synth heavy at times, new wave-ish, into hard rock, and this is awesome fucking shit. It's like one of those perfect records you put on at night. I'm definitely going to be on the hunt for other Billy Thorpe records, even though he looks like a cheese stick there. Look at that fucking hair. What the fuck, man? Is he trying to go David Hasselhoff? Look at that stuff. Yeah, but this is good. Yeah, this is really good. I'm really, really excited about this. Really excited to have it. We're moving on up. This is the Fleshies with Kill the Dreamer's Dream. And I'm not sure when this came out. I want to say in the 90s. These guys are fucking they're signed on the Alternative Tentacle labels, and this is just fun, abrasive, offensive, kind of noisy, and at times a little garagey but noisy kind of punk. And I don't know if I want to say these guys are hardcore, maybe a little bit of hardcore, maybe, I don't know. But there's definitely like a funness to them, an offensiveness to them. I got songs like Yes, I'm Starting Shit, Shitface, Loco Foco Motherfucker. Yeah, I would say these guys are hardcore. I would say they're hardcore, with a really, really good sense of humor. The Fleshies are awesome. So this one was $11. Awesome shit. Gone 2 But Never Gone 2 is the name of this band, and this is Gone But Never Gone. Never Too Gone is what I should say. Gone 2 with Never Too Gone, I think is the name of this. I thought the band was just called Gone. I'm pretty sure it is. This is a side project of Greg Ginn of a Black Flag, instrumental. I like this. This kind of reminds me of what I think could have been his. Look at that on SST. Can you see the SST in there? What could have been like some of his solo work, which I actually, in some ways, like more than Black Flag. Like Getting Even and Dick, I like just as much as those albums, just as much as Black Flag. There's something very noisy about those albums. This has a little bit more of a musicality to it. It's kind of indie punk, but at least the songs I heard, but there's definitely more going on here than what you would think musically. So I'd still call it maybe punk in the punk vein, but I'm not sure how you would describe this. At least the two songs I heard were kind of in the indie instrumental punk kind of thing. Kind of more, maybe even more indie rock than anything. Two albums left. Both of these are considered noise artists, and this first one, they had a whole bunch of albums by them, and I just went with the one that was the most. I don't know. It was cheaper, so they had a whole bunch of albums by them there, which I find their stuff is getting more accessible down here too. But this is Chrome with Read Only Memory, 1979 release. I want to say I think this is the second or third album. They made a bunch of albums in a short amount of time. I think the first album came out in 78 or 79. And this is right up there with what you would expect from Chrome. Noisy experimental music. And I mean noisy experimental music. Some of this is sound loops, repetitive words. Very, very experimental. I was talking to the lead singer of Skinny Puppy, and he was saying Chrome was a huge, huge influence on Skinny Puppy. And now that, when he said it, I guess I didn't see it at first, but the more I've listened to Skinny Puppy, I kind of see that level of repetition in some of the stuff they made, how that would work. So, yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, Chrome really is what they are. I mean, this really is experimental music. I mean, and I guess they were kind of dubbed as industrial the same way like Throbbing Gristle would have been, maybe, or early in Nostra Nubaten. But this is way more like, I don't know, experimental more so than anything that but if you want to throw industrial in there, that's definitely fine. They definitely challenge you in ways that like Throbbing Gristle will challenge you musically. What's possible, what would be considered music. I love that whole what I call anti-music music. I'm a big proponent of that, so Chrome does it for me. So Read Only Memory. And last but not least, this one was 23 and really the most expensive thing I bought in Michigan on vinyl was this. The most expensive, most of it I got fairly cheap. I have not seen anything by this band on vinyl in a long fucking time, and I was certainly glad to see that this came out on vinyl. Wow, how cool is this? This is Flipper with Public Flipper Limited, live 80 to 85. I don't own anything by Flipper on vinyl. I've never had anything by them on CD, ever, and I've always wanted to get even like generic Flipper, that album. I haven't seen that shit in years. And here for $23 is this double live album. I almost picked up a legendary Pink Dots album. I was really close to getting one, and I just kind of strayed away from it and went down this rabbit hole because to me this is better, for my collection anyways, because it's something I want. But here's what it looks like. And these are just on kind of white vinyl on the For Men with Beards label. And of course, if you've heard Flipper, you know that they're experimental, they're noisy. They'd really piss off the hardcore punks by playing their level of noise. And instead of looking for tempos, they were looking for stretches of unfiltered, non-melodic, non-fucking structured noise. And I mean, I'm pretty sure they got their ass beat back in the day when they were playing hardcore shows, or they beat somebody's ass. I don't know. This band was really unfiltered, so and unpredictable, so it's possible. I mean, I guess I don't know their whole deep, rich history, but I'm pretty sure that they got threatened to get, like at hardcore shows they were playing this like fucking noise, and it wasn't really gonna jive well with the scene, because I think these guys are from California, so Circle Jerks and all these great bands, and what is their name? Circle Jerks, and who else from LA? Fear, and what's the name of that one band I'm trying to think of? Oh God, not Reagan Youth, because I think they're from Washington, but shit. it's gone now. But all these hardcore bands from, I couldn't imagine these bands playing with these guys and it just being like even appealing at all or anything. But this is pretty much, you want to talk pre-amphetamine Reptile. This is noise rock, I guess noise punk if you want to call it punk, without getting my ass beat. But this is super fucking noisy and discordant and I'd say experimental to an extent, but mostly in that noise kind of vein was Flipper. I think there's definitely, I mean, definitely elements of experimentalism in their music, but there's something about this band. This band must have really influenced bands like Royal Trucks later on, I think, because there's something about this where, and Royal Trucks said it too. Royal Trucks said that they're trying to find the part in music where that sweet spot where it's drawn towards musicality and it's drawn towards pure unadulterated, not noise but anti-music, and they were trying to stay in the middle of that, pulling one way and then pulling the other way and conceptually staying in the middle. Royal Trucks was doing that. Now I don't think Flipper was on the same conceptual wavelength is Royal Trucks, but I do think there's some similarities as far as like taking something and trying to create a stream of consciousness with it to an extent, and having it creating its own rules or breaking those rules along the way. I think Flipper does this real well. I'm just absolutely, I think their music's really magnetic to me, really, really hypnotic to an extent, very powerful. In a way that makes me really, really excited that I've gotten to know and love this band. So, yeah, finally, you know, it's never too late to find a something you've always wanted on vinyl. Now you can find it, or it's getting easier to find, in my opinion, is Flipper. So that's it for my hauls. Those were all the records I got from RPM Records in Traverse City, Michigan. We're talking not Detroit. I didn't go to Grand Rapids or Detroit or Ann Arbor. I went up north, rural area. Not a lot of traffic, lots of hills and trees. And that's kind of, I feel like for what I picked up, I got some really quality stuff. And the next thing I'm going to show you for part 2 of my Michigan pickups is absolutely batshit. And I'm going to do this in a way that I've never done a show before. I'm going to try to show 100 records in about 20 some CDs in less than an hour, because I'm just going to go through and just show them to you. These, I spent 120, was it 100, almost $130 at this guy's house. His name's Harvey. In his basement, he has records, CDs, cassettes, VHS tapes, all this stuff. And he has a room that everything's 50 cents. He has another room where the records are priced a little higher. And I went absolutely fucking batshit. And I had stacks. I have a stack of records like probably about this, you know, probably about that big. And I'm just going to kind of flip through and show you that. I also picked up some records this weekend from the local Jerk Dog Records. And I got some really, really good stuff. I had some leftover money because I didn't spend as much money in in Michigan as I thought I was going to spend, because my brother gave me some money for records, and that helped. He basically paid for most of the stuff I'm going to show you from Harvey's. So that's going to be coming up soon too. So probably sometime this week or beginning of next week, I'm going to try to roll that out, and that's going to be, I'm going to try to get it under an hour, but that's going to be, I've never done anything like this where it's like that many records. So the next vinyl update I show you will be, I gotta get going here, but will be a fucking huge update, of huge record and CD update. Fucking awesome. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'm back to my long fucking time because I showed my short videos. No one watched it. No one might watch this, but fuck it. I'm gonna go back to the long times because, you know, that's just how I roll. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.